Welcome back to the MaxBet Podcast. I am Bald, and we are here with Mike Brennan, Chief Product Officer of Bluberi. And welcome to the show, man. Thanks for swinging by.
Oh, man. No, it's exciting to be here, and it's good to have you guys back, or you back.
Yeah, exactly. I know, long story there, but Landon, you know what I feel like? I feel like, especially now with the new haircut, it's like the Fast and the Furious movies where Vin Diesel continues and Paul Walker goes and has a family. You know, it's not sad Landon's alive, but like he's got the baby and the wife, and they're moving and kind of doing that whole thing out of Vegas. And so it's like, we'll carry the torch. And
Absolutely.
a lot of people ask, like, are you guys mad at each other? I'm like, no, we're still pretty much best friends. But as it is, like, it's, just geography comes in between, and we figured to keep it rolling. But yeah.
But we missed you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
And I appreciate being a part of this inauguration.
The relaunch or however you want to look at it. Yeah, man, it's exciting. I think I appreciate you coming. I mean, looking at it, I don't know if there's a buzzier company in the business right now than Bluberi, and a lot of that's obviously it's slot games, and that's kind of the part you oversee. So yeah, it's lucky for us to have you, or for me to have you.
Oh yeah, and part of it is like just understanding that this doesn't last forever, and so we're extremely focused on keeping it going.
Sure,
right? Like you can be buzzy, but to build a whole hive to overdo some silly stuff is challenging, and so we're just really focused on not stopping, right? Keep rolling, and trying to make sure the buzz is real, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can get into that then for just get right going, but. Looking in from the outside, it seems like you have a pretty high batting average, right? So obviously, for those that don't know, Bluberi makes great slot content, Class 2 and Class 3. Class 2 is the roots, I think. Is that kind of where you started?
Absolutely.
And then, but lately you've been making this big push into Class 3, and on like the Eilers report, and you're showing up with top games. You might even have number 1 for a while, right? So I mean, that's unheard of, right? Usually those rankings are dominated by the Light and Wonders and the Aristocrats and the IGTs and others. And here comes little old Bluberi, and you're hitting, and it seems like of the games you release, you have a lot more going to the top. Like, so clearly there's some magic going on, or something's happening over there.
Yeah, and first of all, the thing is like this industry will humble you too. So like, we're having a good run, and like the thing is you got to kind of keep evolving, because next thing you know, you could have a drought for a while, as we've seen. But it's been amazing, because I think we're onto something, and part of it is like we have to, right?
Yeah.
We've got to kind of have a higher batting average, because we're at a disadvantage with spend that we're growing. But part of it is just kind of putting together this magic and being able to really do things a little differently, and focus on slightly different approaches to what we're doing.
Yeah. So I know everyone out there wants me to ask you, so I'll ask you anyway. What's the secret sauce? Can you share any part of it? Like, I know from just offline conversation with a few of you guys, it seems like there's a process to it. Like, there's a method. It's not just blind luck. You're not like, oh, Devils are cool, and then all of a sudden Devil's Lock is number 1. Like, how much of your game process can you share, and give, like, what is allowing you to become so successful on a per hit rate? I mean, your hit rate's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we'd love to share stuff. We'd love to tell stories. We're like, hey, we're going to open the curtain a bit more to R&D, because it's always been kind of this dark.
Well, no one wants to tell you, because I feel like on our side, like coming from the sales side, it's like, yeah, it's great. Trust that it's great. Don't talk to those guys, because we don't want you to steal them. We don't want you to copy them, right? So the fact that you're very open about it, it seems it's counterintuitive, but maybe it's part of the success as well.
Yeah, and part of it is just like, I mean, a lot of it's intuitive, right? Just I don't think people are talking about it. But part of it, the big part of it is that making sure that it comes from the passion of the team working on the products, right? I think it's really hard to top down a great game. So we try to put up kind of scenarios where our team believes in it, right? If you don't believe in what you're working on, it's not gonna work. So we're able to kind of franchise. We're going through this franchise right now. We started in Quebec. We're a Quebecois company, and a lot of our expertise in games have come from there. But we spun off some side studios, starting with Reno, and then building into New Brunswick, and now into Austin. And we're just trying to make sure that there's enough kind of guidelines in place. The metaphor we're using is like, hey, we have the same sheet music. It's just people are playing their own instruments. They're interpreting different. They might even play their own genres, right, within it. But they have that kind of passion, that feeling, and they believe in it, because when things start going south is when you get the too many cooks in the kitchen, and you try to kind of science a game. So we love our phrases. I'll probably repeat too many of them here. Yeah. In fact, my team is probably sick of it. It's like when you tell the same story over and over. But, creativity within confines is a big one for us. So letting the passion of the groups share through, but make sure we have kind of the parameters and guardrails, like bumpers on a bowling lane, to try to make sure that the ball's going towards the head pin.
Yeah, that's probably the ex-college athlete in you. Just live and die by the short phrases like winning, do your job, or creativity in confines.
Are you trying to say bowling's a sport? Because Steve,
I thought you were a hoops guy, but yeah, we could go bowling. It's bowling's hard. I'll tell you. Just as a side note, I went bowling with my kids recently, and I broke 100, which was good, because I was like, man, if these kids think I'm Superman, so I got to at least do that. But
We have a 300 bowler on our team, so
Really?
a little trivia. So maybe we'll have to discover that lately.
Fun fact: you got a 3. That maybe exactly. Just don't. That's your shark on all the gaming bowling tournaments. But like, we're just gonna bring whoever this person is and light up the world on bowling. So yeah, creativity and confidence. Okay, so when you were talking, one thing jumped out to me, which maybe it shouldn't have, but you mentioned Reno, you mentioned Austin. Quebec, I feel like, is new. That's probably unique to you guys. There's not a lot of gaming offices there. Why do people keep coming back to Reno and Austin? And I mean, there's a lot more cities in the U.S., and I'm sure there's creativity around. Like, what makes those the hub? Vegas kind of makes sense to me, but those other two, less.
Yeah. I think, and one thing is like we go where the talent is.
Sure.
So we went where the candidates were, and we found 2 great ones in Keith and Mike. But
Build around them.
Exactly, right. And I think it's like, is there just a culture there? Is there like a pipeline from university? But free commercial, like we're going to start another studio, and anybody in a different city, we'd love to do that, right? So Solana Beach or Encinitas, if
someone likes to hang out by the waves. Yeah. So you're saying that makes sense then. So what you're saying is we go after the talent that we need, and we found the right guy or girl to run the studio.
Exactly.
Where they are tends to be where the next studio pops up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, and I guess you just got a lot of talent in those areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and there's like Forebears that came before us that did a great job fostering gaming in those cities. But like Moncton, New Brunswick's been amazing, great leader up there, and a lot of talent pool as well.
Yeah, Moncton's one of those you don't, unless you're an old IGT guy, or what is it? Spilo. Yeah, I was going to say, you don't really hear of Moncton, right? So it's like, I only know because I looked after Canada for a while. And I was like, Moncton, huh? Like, couldn't have found it on a map, right? Probably still couldn't get there. And our height, like the plane there has got to be a little rough, but that's that's another hot gem of talent.
Atlantic time zone, so it's an hour further east than Eastern. We like to talk about, so 4 hours difference.
Yeah.
So
that's always a fun flex.
Halfway to UK. Yeah.
So you mentioned like being very forthcoming with your kind of design process and other things. Like, one of the things I know that stood out, and I think others have probably started to emulate that, was maybe 2 years ago, G2E was it, where you put your storyboards in the game for the customer to review. And I don't think it's for the player side, but for at the trade show, you're saying, look, here's how we came up with it. Here's the first iteration, and you kind of walk through the journey. How was that response? I feel like there's a lot of buzz around that. Customers seem to appreciate that?
Oh, yeah. I think, like I said, there's been a barrier of kind of sharing information. And part of it, I think, is like some of my background is not being from, R&D and always being kind of focused on the player and the operator. So like understanding that journey and figuring out ways to increase like retention of, a trade show. It's like, I mean, it's like rinse, repeat, bonus, just like, okay, I'm on my feet, I'm tired, I'm hungover, give them something to remember, show them the why is powerful too. A 3 little letter word of why. Like if you just explain a little bit of the why, you really get this retention and kind of like this aha moment from our customers and others, just understanding, I see it, I get it. It's not just this shiny thing or this bonus that I'm not going to remember. It's intentional, and they remember kind of why we're doing things. It's been a huge, huge one. But we've got to kind of follow all that stuff up. So it's like, once you do something, it's like, all right, how do we twist it this year? What do we do different? And so that's what we're constantly kind of post-morteming too. That's a part of, I can talk about a lot of the reasons we think we're having a good hit rate right now.
Sure.
And we're going to scale it and continue to do it, really, hopefully, is that we do honest post-mortems of everything we do, especially our games. So like that's easier to do when you're only making a dozen games a year, but we go out there, we understand what it's like with smoke in your face, and you put that crisp $100 in, and we really, it's not a sunk cost. I think a lot of folks are like, that game's gone, whether it's good or bad. But we're like, what went right, what went wrong? Teaching moment for ourselves, for our creatives involved, and that's been a big part of what we're doing, including things like trade shows and having those storyboards.
Yeah. Who gives you some of that feedback, right? Because I know if it's me talking about my game, I might be a little gentle on myself, right? Like maybe not, but you go, well, how was I going to know the smoke in the air was going to make it less easy to see? Like, are you getting player feedback in that postmortem? Obviously, it sounds like the dev team's going out playing the game in real life, but who else is part of that to give you that kind of harsh look that you need?
Yeah, I think it's this kind of like checks and balances. We have a product management group that goes out and does this, right? So they approach it agnostically, like it's not their game. They write up, you got to be a PowerPoint ninja. Sometimes to work at Bluberi, it's just kind of sad but cool. So
that's everybody these days, man. If you don't know PowerPoint, that's like brush up, right? Because
it's pretty sad. It's like when you start thinking in PowerPoint, like let me just draw this circle and a Venn diagram. It's like okay, I got to take a break.
Header box there, exactly.
Yeah, but it's like this independent party that presents it, and I think it's a culture of wanting to get better.
Sure.
We have people that are just like, one of our core values is celebrate wins but never be satisfied. And it's like, hey, anytime you kind of think, pat yourself on the back, meanwhile, someone just ran past you.
For sure.
So it's like, you've got to look and, oh man, I wish I would have missed that. And a lot of the times someone's like, I see it. I didn't see it before. Yeah, we ran out of time. So it's been, kind of a cultural approach that let's be open to this. It's tough because people put their heart and soul into these games, and it's like they spend a year and a half on them or a year and a quarter, and you're not criticizing, you're just being real about what's going on, and it's worked out really well.
Well, that's all I ask is like being in the business, there's times where in sales you'll go, look, game's not working, right? And maybe we're not selling it right. Maybe it just wasn't the right game. But like, don't say that to them because that's almost like saying, hey, your kid is not attractive, right? Like you don't call the kid ugly, can't call the game bad. It's like that emotional, I feel like, for the inventors. That's what I was curious to see, like who's giving you that because you need to hear it.
Yeah. I think part of it is just like showing that you know what you're talking about.
Sure.
Right? It's like doing the work is another big one for us. It's like we think we're obviously not going to be the best gaming company in the world, but we think another metaphor is like we can make the best carne asada taco out of any place, and we can have just a taco truck. But like if we focus and work hard and have like this open approach to things, that we can be best in breed in a lot of things. And we think like the way we approach market research or doing the work on cataloging game mechanics or doing our own postmortems following the process, like we can be as best as there is out there, and the challenge now is how do we scale that, how do we keep the quality while increasing the quantity. And that's where this franchising, that's where this kind of, let's have these bunch of artisanal studios do this stuff and put a ton of care and all this stuff is bearing fruit. And we're going to know right now we have a wave of games getting approved in the next couple months. So it's this next test to see is the grand experiment we're doing here at Bluberi going to keep
scaling up. So that's wild. So let's walk through that process for a second. So like if I'm the new designer, you said you're coming up with a new game, you have a process in place, or so one of the tenets we talked about is creativity within the confines. So like what's the starting point? Like if I'm on your team and I'm like, I have an idea, walk me through kind of the first part of that. Like, is that market research to say, look, we really do need another class 3 video for XYZ market? Is that the first, like, how do you start the journey?
That's a good question. It's not that prescriptive. We're starting to get there a little bit. Our Austin studio is going to focus on a wheel game because we had kind of a gap in our portfolio of just traditional wheel games. And so that was more kind of like, hey, work within this. Sure. We have game tracks as well. So let's say you have a 5x4 game. It's 10, 24 ways to win. And it's like, hey, let's reuse a lot of the elements of this game for game 2. Yep. We like to have seed battles too. So we have a gate process that starts with a seed, like you're talking about. And we usually want 2 ideas. And so we'll kind of present them both. And we'll have kind of a mixed group, a small group too, to kind of say, hey, this one I think fits our portfolio better. Yep. We have this grid that you're talking about on the storyboards to be like, hey, this is a risky game. Timing's right for that. It's like, oh, we had a couple of risky games coming in a row. Like let's just make a 3-pot filler, which
is kind of some safety games or some. What's the opposite of risky game?
A 3-pot filler. But there's effort, and that's not a guarantee, right? Like, but for sure, like you kind of that seems like the path to success today, for sure.
And then something I've always wondered. So now that you've said, hey, it's going to be, you've kind of nailed your real formats down. You said 5x4, 10, 24 ways, right? And then you say, so we know it's riskier. Then what? Like, how do you approve the art? Like, I've always wondered that. Like, you go, oh, you got a shark game or you got a devil's game. Like, who is it? Just like Mike Brennan likes sharks, so that's what we're doing?
No, the opposite.
Research here
comes from the bottoms up, right? Yeah. So there has to be passion behind it, and I think it's just like collaboration, and we talk about like why, right? Intentionality is a big one. So we did go from the devil to the shark. And based on some of our post-mortem stuff, we actually do talk to players some of the time, not all the time, because it can take a lot of time. Is for some reason the red kept coming up with the devil. So we actually made the shark from blue to red. It was a good example of like, hey, we have a fuzzy data point here, but it's better than no data point. When it evolves from there, it really comes from what are we targeting here? We're big on game mechanics, so we have this ridiculous kind of grid and ranking year over year, and so we really are passionate about like you've got to satisfy the most popular mechanics, or you're just you're taking too big of a risk. We don't want to have like crazy stuff. We don't want to do. We call it white paper innovation at the top of the spectrum. At the bottom is like true copying. You want to be in the middle, right? And I think like we like to sprinkle in, focus on the big mechanics and sprinkle in some older stuff, right? So. We're talking about things that may not have been done for a couple of years. We're doing some split symbol games. We're doing this bookending, which is really old school. I don't know if you've got anything from.
Well, I was just going to ask you. So, like when you talk about the archives of gaming, one of the games I've always loved. Do you think you'll ever get back to, as an industry, games like Valhalla or what's it like Twin Win, where there's almost no bonus, but you can still make a ton of money? Like it seems like everything's so bonus driven these days. Like are those games just gone? Like is that just?
I mean, probably right. Everybody has a different perspective, but everybody's you're chasing certain things, and it'd be really hard to pull that off, I think. Well, it depends on the market, right? Like a VLT market or something, but
it'd be different.
In your big native casino near you, it'd be hard to probably engage the player for a long time period with something
like that. Yeah, because I always found that interesting. Just going, you don't have to think, you just play, and you either win or you don't. Like it was just always seemed I never really understood how, but I just knew it was a high risk, high reward game, and I liked it. But yeah, so I don't have a lot of old school features that I was chasing. I think when I got into the gaming business, I was really into like I don't know what you call them, really time on device games. So they were probably popular. I mean, 20 years ago, it was Jackpot Party and Goldfish was like, yeah, we're just going to hang out. We're going to get a bunch of free beers because I couldn't afford them. I was 21, 22 years old. And now I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, just rip my face off, right? I'm playing high risk, like, I just want to give you the 500 and hopefully I double it.
Yeah.
If I don't, okay, we'll go next time, right?
Yeah, but, and you're definitely an archetype player, right? And I think that's like when you're making a game, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but we're trying to make our games for almost everybody, right? Like you'll hear a lot of, it makes sense. Like, hey, I'm targeting this player and what have you, but we're growing our games, and it's like we've got to be broad enough where the art is appealing to almost everybody, so we're not offending anybody, but within that domain, within that genre, we're having some fun. We're doing different things, and then we want to make games that appeal to. Our games are a little less rip your face off, pretty obvious, than the market. However, we're getting some good high limit play because you can volatilize the game yourself by betting or denomming up, right? So if it's like a more time on device, but you're betting, $15 a spin, that's a different experience, but. We're not going to make the rip your face off game. We have some volatile games, right? We have some people that like to make it. But that's another thing too, when we play internally, maybe something a little different too, is I've kept my bet almost the same, right? I'm around $2.
Okay, that's my normal too. I just like to go aggressive,
Yeah, right. And we'll do group plays to understand what it's like, but it's like I think we're making games for players. Another phrase there for you. Get the bingo card at home.
For players, so we got two. Yeah,
that's one of our 10 game commandments. We a lot of stuff.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we make games for players. We don't make it for ourselves, right? So we try to keep it around the U.S. average bet. And of course, can we get the platinum players to play it? And that's a challenge, and it's something we're trying to do, but it's not a massive focus of ours.
So where on the button layout would the, let's say, $2 bet fall? Like when you're doing that, that's the second bet option or the third? Because I'll bet 2 1/4, but it's like on certain Aristocrat games or whatever, that might be the third bet. And I feel like, hey, all right, I'm actually betting up here because it's the middle bet versus not like, I'm sure that comes into factor. Like you're not making a 225 or whatever minimum.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's that beautiful like decoy effect or the feeling that you move up. All our games have 6 bet buttons too. So just a simple little one where we can provide a bit more variety.
Most are 5.
So we go to 6. I mean, at 1 cent. Sometimes we'll go down later for, exposure of properties, right? Max liability is a big thing. But for sure, like players, like to feel, I think that they bet up a little more. We also are trying to keep our cost of cover within a range to make sure we're not extreme on other ends.
On the beginning. Like, so if you're not going to necessarily, not every game's an 88-cent minimum, for example, you might do 50. Yeah, that makes sense. And then when you said we want the platinum players to play it, what unique behaviors do they exhibit that you're like, well, this is why they would or wouldn't play? Like, what is a platinum player looking for, I guess, in some of these game creations?
Yeah, not exactly what we're giving them, I think, but it's they're looking for, it's different. It's unique because, a high limit room will have one game that's empty 90% of the time, and this person slides in and just hammers it, right? So I think it's just satisfying, what those players, it's challenging, right? I mean, they're the 80-20 rule. And if you can give someone a chance, it's all about winning too, right? Like, hey, we're here to actually at the end of the day, come away with something. So we have another phrase called like, show me the money, or where's the money? And just making sure that there's some sort of coins or cash or a chase that involves, the path. Hey, I'm gambling. Yes. It's here for this experience and whether we're looking for time advice or what have you. But at the end of the day, like it's gambling. And,
that's what we're doing. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then we're talking about show me the money. I'll just trickle in a little controversy, or maybe players feel the hold. Is that a thing? Like I never knew I could or not. Sometimes I just feel like I lose faster, and so maybe I go, this game's tight. Like I don't know how real that is. Like, what's your feeling on that? You're both a player and a game designer. Like, do you think the hold is really that important? Like, how much does it factor in as to the experience?
Yeah, I think answering your question twofold is like for a game they're not familiar with, I don't think there's really any way. And so it's what are you changing with the hold to? And usually it's frequencies. At least that's what.
I was going to ask you that actually because I don't understand it.
Yeah, so it's like you're not truncating a pay table, right? You're just pushing like a bonus from 140 to 147 something. So in a short session or whatever, I don't think there's any way someone's gonna realize that. If it's your favorite game and you play it in Washington and you play it on the Strip, you're probably, that's probably a bad example because that's Class 2 or
maybe
TLS.
Southern Cal, maybe, and it's okay. Yeah.
Right. You're probably going to feel it. It depends. This is a controversial subject too, right?
That's what I was asking. Yeah.
We got the professors and we got the folks on the floor, and then into your casino, I think you're definitely going to feel it, right? If you come in and you're used to getting X, and let's say they tighten the floor up by 3%, which doesn't really happen. You're going to feel it. Also, if you walk the Strip, you'll notice there's a lot of jackpots that aren't incrementing, like that's a way to get an RTP 1 or 2%. And I think obviously you see that if you're like, oh, why am I playing this game? And it's fixed at
it's a fixed, static amount. Well, that makes sense, right? I mean, just not incrementing the meter, you wouldn't necessarily feel it in the base game, but you'd say, well, okay, I'm not. Most of us, maybe I'm wrong. I don't play for that. I have no expectation I'm going to win the top prize. So increment it or don't, whatever, right? But for the one, that's what I was curious. I was in table games, so my most recent career path would tell you that in order to tighten up the game or to increase the hold, we would go to less pay for the same win, right? Because you can't really change the frequency of a blackjack. So you go from 3 to 2 to 6 to 5, or you make the side bet hit instead of a 6 to 1 payout, it's 4 to 1, right? So we change the pays. But in slots, it sounds like more often you're changing the frequency of the event. So rather than saying you're not going to get 3 bonus symbols on every 147 and versus 140. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess you wouldn't feel that as much because then when you do get the round, you still make what you would have made. You just won't get that as often.
I think everybody does a little different.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I'm by no means an expert, and you don't know video poker.
You better be, buddy. You're the CPO. What are we doing here?
No, but I think part of it though is like I think one thing that's cool about Bluberi is we put ourselves in different positions.
Sure.
Right. So like I've never made a game before. So it's pretty cool. I'm not sure what a real strip is made of, but I think that's helping us because what I have done has been out in the field, for 15 years, done focus groups and interacted with players hundreds of times, and played pretty much every new slot machine that's come out for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Right. And the team that works for me are the experts on the real strips and what they do with frequency, so it's really, I think it's a good ebb and flow. So I'm not looking over their shoulder, kind of looking at their Mets, spreadsheet and telling them what to do. I'm really representing the market, the player. And I think it's my job also to make sure we're making the right games. And what I mean by that is making sure our team is excited and excited about the right things. And then if they're excited about the right things and we go along and we have these little list of like kind of red flags that we'll talk about in our gate process. And we just have a dialogue and ask questions instead of try to come up with solutions, though it's really fun.
Yeah.
Try to come up with solutions, and occasionally I'll get thrown a bone. It'll get in the game, but it's like, it is really about keeping everybody on course and letting, the talent, run the day and trust them that we got the right people to do this stuff. But for sure, what we do is we don't truncate pay tables. And I would say in our games, unless it's your total favorite, you're not going to really. But we don't make a play table lower than a certain percentage. We do make our games for players. And so we like them loose for sure. That's not a new phrase, but maybe it could be after this one.
Put on the bingo card. Like them loose. Yeah, no, that's good. That's a T-shirt waiting to happen.
We do have a merchandise store that we released too.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Put that up next to the sparkling.
Pending. Here it comes. Let them.
That's it.
Let them loose.
Let them loose. Put Bluebird right on the front of that thing.
Thanks for knowing that, man.
Yeah, I like Bluebird. Yeah, the Bluberi mascot's good. So that's, again, we're kind of jumping around here, but like it's very buzzy. Like coming in, your guys' approach to branding has been different, I think, both from a cultural perspective in terms of, it came out with Jordan, but Casey and Burke and these guys going, we're wearing Jordans to work. And it was like, that's all we talked about. I was like, what games do you have? Don't worry about the games. Games are coming. We have Jordans in the office. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And then, obviously now that culture's led to success in the market.
It's kind of like that. The most important thing of a game is the name, right? It's easy after that. So you just wear Jordans to work.
Exactly.
And I prefer, either Air Force Ones, Dunk Lows, or Air Maxes. So just to be clear.
I'm a Dunk Low guy now. I'm wearing Air Force Ones today, but it's like, I just realized they're Dunk Low.
And I have a whole, I have these shoes in my closet. I'm like, am I ever going to wear these again? Like and part is real though. It permeates. I think we have the ability to. A lot of what we do is because we can. Yeah. Right? Like the reason a lot of us came here is to create this kind of cool experiment and try different things. So we don't have, we have a great legacy in Quebec. We have amazing folks up there, but we don't have a cultural legacy. We weren't known by a lot of people. Sure. So we can do things differently. In fact, we're trying to, just a little twist. Nothing to be different for the sake of it, but it's obviously we brewed a beer, then a seltzer, at G2E, that stuff that would never get past like risk management.
Yeah. Which kudos to you guys, because I laugh. I saw that and I'm like, 2 of your top 5 guys don't even drink, right? And you're making out like this is great. But I think that's probably your nod because you're the craft beer guy, right?
Yeah, well, or Steve Cohan, his brother,
right.
is a brewer, so it's cool. We keep it in the family, but it permeates. Like we have some common language. We try to do things that we want to do, things that didn't work before, trying new things, and it's amazing when you get kind of a team together with energy and new ideas. Like, and there's almost no rules, right? Like you obviously know what's at the top, and it's like, hey, bring it on. If we've got a cool idea and it makes sense, don't be different for the sake of being different, but like do something to be sticky. Again, retention, standing out. Our industry hasn't put a focus on a lot of stuff. It's a high barriers to entry, right? It's a painfully slow process sometimes, getting games across or getting approved new markets. And it's like, let's have a little fun. And we're actually, trying to follow through on that. Yeah,
that's good. I think a lot of people, that's also why everyone wants to work there, right? People all the time go, hey, there's a job opening. I'm like, just apply for it, man. Like if I try to introduce you guys to everybody, like the whole LinkedIn network would just be in your inbox, right? But
we appreciate that. And realize, and like we're the stewards that try to keep that going.
For sure.
Like I said, there's been, some groups that have kind of stubbed their toe. There's a plateau waiting. And what we keep trying to get across is like, we are absolutely striving to keep going. Like it's like media season. So I don't want to repeat ourselves, but it's like you can go from kind of being last to first in a division like the NFL. It happens every year, right? Since it's NFL season, go Bills. But like to repeat and keep winning, and not to say we've won the division, we won a couple games, right? And we won a playoff game, but we want to win the Super Bowl, another tired cliche, but, and it's like to actually do that and repeat it. And okay, now you have to deal with the salary cap and move some stuff around. Like that's what we're obsessed with is like, okay, what's a new market we're getting into in 2027 when we open up all North America, and we're able to think long-term and short-term, at the same time, because we don't really have these shackles, and it's been super fun. It's only going to get more fun, but it's also challenging, right? It's like, we say it's like the hardest job you're going to have, but it's the most fun you're probably going to have. And so, that's not for everybody, but it's for some people. And a lot of us too are in stretch roles. Like again, but being open and admitting that, like everyone's here, like I've never had that letter before a title. Better live up to it, right?
Better build it.
But like if you trust your experience and your instinct, I think a lot of folks, are worried about what they don't know. And like for me to say, I didn't know what a real strip is, like that's fine because I don't need to know that. And we embrace that kind of different approach to going for things like aptitude, skill set, cultural fit. We also have another rule. Can we swear?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. It's the HBO podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're like, as we're franchising, we have this kind of phrase like no talented assholes.
Yeah.
Like we, one bad individual like who's, has this ego or whatever. Not to say there aren't egos here. You've got to have confidence, but like no talented assholes is a rule that we have to make sure that, we're keeping the culture going.
I love that. So there's a book, if you haven't read it, I'll get it for you, called Legacy, which is a New Zealand All Blacks, right? So they're the ones, like you talk about Super Bowl, it's a little different sport, but they're constantly at the top, right? Always, every year, everyone knows who they are. They have their legacies are 15 core principles, right? Number 6, my favorite, no dickheads. And that's the same time. Like you might be the best game designer, best rugby player. If we can't work, this isn't going to work, right? Like you can't be that person here. So I love that you've embraced that. And no talented assholes. That's a good time.
Went to All Blacks just here, and one of our corn tortilla eating friends, inside joke, just went to see them. So,
nice. Okay. Yeah, they come here all the time. There's always rugby events here. They're coming back in March, I think, for new rugby league. So get your corn tortilla friend tickets and shirts ready for early March. So to play on your metaphor for a minute, so you're saying, you obviously want to win the Super Bowl. What is your Super Bowl? Like, how do you know you've won? Like in football, it's easy. Hey, in February, you're either wearing a ring or you're not. Like, how does that work here?
It's a good point because it's never over. It's like, I'm sure the best leaders, when they win the Super Bowl, they maybe celebrate for a day and they're thinking of the next year. Like we definitely, after something, we're like, okay, things are going too good. Like, what's going to happen? So that's a really good question. There probably is no Super Bowl. It's probably elusive. I mean, to really lay it out there, we'd love to get to number 4.
Sure.
We got a long ways to go in the industry, but like maybe not. It's going to take a lot of focus and hard work too. Is like we do talk about sometimes just rolling up your sleeves. Can get it done, and strategy and kind of thinking ahead. But we'd love to get there. Like that's our goal. And
one milestone at a time.
And this is the best job a lot of us have ever had. I don't speak for everybody, but most fun I've ever had, and we don't want to stop until.
I'll say everyone that I know that's working there, they would seem to feel that way. So like they don't always say that, but it's like it comes across like the energy's good, and so I think you speak for everybody, and they'll probably all co-sign that when it comes out. Yeah. All right, so then you talk about scaling and obviously trying to keep it going. So part of that growth isn't just scaling the culture. It's also saying, hey, I don't know how many games you're releasing now. Let's say it's 30 games or so.
Much less.
Much less. Okay, so from where you are getting to 30, I mean, where I just left Light & Wonder, I know they're north of 100. I don't want to put them on a number because I don't exactly know it, but north of 100 games a year. Like at some point you have to scale. Like, are you using? How do you do? Is it new technology? Is it AI? I hate to buzzword it, but is it something like that, or is it just, hey, we're going to just keep finding more talented people, or how do you scale as you keep this thing rolling?
It's a great point. Probably multifold. It's like we say that like the KPIs of how many games you release is probably the wrong one.
Sure.
Because it's about hit rate and how many stick. For sure we need to get more efficient. So things like AI can help us like trim some non-value added, weeks off it. And anybody in gaming right now realizes the power of it in like the prototype phase, right? Instead of saying, hey, can you draw me, this, let's try these couple art styles, and, you spend all this time doing them, you can do that immediately. And so it really helps you come up with a vision sooner. But there is something to be said. I want to sound like a Luddite or what have you, of like just, taking your time and putting your love into the game. I mean, you don't want to take your time.
Yeah.
But like we do some crazy stuff. We have this thing called Gate 4 Magic, and this will probably give a heart attack of some folks out there. But we have our gates in the process, and the last gate is Gate 4, and that's when we're close to total design lock. The math is done, and we've 2 games we threw wheels into the game. Like
is at the fourth gate.
Yeah.
Actually throw a wheel on it.
And it's not that haphazard.
Yeah, sure.
But it's like our team is so talented and so clever on like, hey, this is the third chase, so I'm going to kind of put a wheel behind the character to try to get that long-term like curiosity. Like, what is that wheel? I know it's not the first or second thing I'm looking after, but okay. And let's say it hits, in 3 sessions, then, if we bank our games next to each other, someone will see that and kind of gravitate.
Yeah.
So, we do we have delayed games, right? Which is, again, I think in other places I get it. It's like, this has to be released. We're on to the next thing. And I think a lot of games start really good. Like, think about it this way. It's like every game that starts has good intentions and something just goes wrong.
This is when you say starts, it's in the field or in the
No, I'm sorry. In the dev
That's okay.
process.
Yeah, just curious.
Almost any game in the industry, it's like, hey, this is going to be a great game. And then as you're going, that can't mash up. And like, I'm going to skip that step or, and then it just ends up here, but starts here. And so we're trying to like, okay, if it's going this way, is it worth, trying to bump it up a bit more? And, it's a bit messy now because we do, a fair amount of CNs. One of our lead designers, his initials are CN. And so we kind of joke about
CN for the mass public stands for what?
Change notification. That means when
it.
you're late.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
And so we're going to get better at that. But some of the best things in life are worth waiting for. Some of the best games have been late. And we're getting in the rhythm of releasing it because we need to, we need to support a growing install base and we're getting in a good rhythm. But to your point, like how we grow is more studios, growing those studios a little bit. But I'll give you a little bit of math. If we can have a studio of 30 people making 6 homegrown games, some of them sequels, some of them these kind of track evolution, some of them brand new. So they're not like variants or clones, they're not families. Like in each of those games has a chance to be, 1.3, 1.5, 1.7. Like that's the path, we're looking to take. And then, making some other pragmatic decisions along the way. Also, everything we do is on portrait screen. So we're not getting over our skis on like supporting all these different looks and feels. We're trying to keep it simple. We're trying to, we're able to make fast moves too on like portfolio wide things. Like we can change our win celebrations, thresholds and getting in the weeds here a little bit pretty quickly. Right. So we're trying to embrace our agility, right? And that's the strength we have. And that's the fun thing is like, as you grow, how do you stay artisanal and not get corporate? But then we need some rules. So it's a fun time, man. I've never learned so much about like what to focus on, what to gloss over. And, I think we'll know in the next 6 months, like how it's going. And, man, I think we'll surprise some people at the show too, even with hardware. Talk about our team there. Like,
I was going to ask you, is there any big bombs coming at the show?
Yeah, we got a new cabinet called the Beacon Plus. And then just to tease anybody, we have something we're calling the Lighthouse, but is an obelisk.
Okay.
So, that's a fun sounding word.
Yeah, exactly.
A little, build a mystery and come by and see what an obelisk is. But it's, I will use Incredible Technologies. I think did an awesome job like 6 years ago, like just innovating and today on like little quick wins and unique hardware stuff. And so we've got something that we're excited to showcase. And, we'll have the most games we've ever shown. It's still not a lot. But like each one we think has a shot to be, a potential strong game, even a game changer. And then they all kind of embrace different mechanics and looks and feels. So it's almost like, it's you got a lot of variety and we're really excited about the diverse portfolio we got going.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, you don't need a full roster if you have the all-star team.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they're all hitting, right, it could work. And so, so Beacon Plus, did that start as Beacon and then you plussed it up, or is it just how'd the plus? What makes it plus?
As usual, we spend a lot of time on the name.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys workshop this. Yeah.
So the first one was Beacon Elite. That was our first foray into premium. Like we're like, all right, we're going into video premium. You know, that should be easy, right?
Yeah, because
most competitive segment in the
just
world.
A bloodbath of.
We launched that in April. It's been awesome. We have I think almost 400 units in the field, and to grow past that into the year. We have a good roadmap for that. Launched by Devil's Lock All In, and then we have the 4-cell version of that cabinet. It's got like full lighting, so it's crazy. It's got lighting on the back of it, so you know. It's again repeating myself.
Is that just for what? Because you assume it's not a back-to-back game, so it's lit the back to attract players.
Yeah, no, it creates this light tunnel. So you know, it's pods work, and everybody wants a 4-pod, 3-pod, but it's like we're like, what if we leaned into the inline, right? You know, because of course we're going to get pods and we want pods, but like, what if we had an awesome looking, clean, and we have some spacers that come with 6-inch spacers that come with every cabinet, so they're free because it's a little shorter. That way we can embrace inline banks and create this really unique visual. Exploratory attract item. That was really articulate.
Yeah, that's right. We're with you.
It's like the lights are blinding me. I'm so dumbfounded by our lighting.
Exactly.
I'm just visualizing it and I'm at a loss for words. But it's really cool.
It's breathtaking.
But we joke, it's like we just put lights on the back of a cabinet, right? It's like, you know, what if it's against the wall? But it actually glows against the wall. And
someone in finance hates that, by the way. They're like, the bomb cost on this can't be good. Yeah,
that's so that's our debut that you can buy. And we made it serviceable too. It's like, you know, the sexy stuff is on the outside, but the inside is like what can maybe break a tie with a purchase. Like, oh man, like, hey, I love the ability to kind of quickly, you know, convert this thing, and there's room for my, you know, what have you. So we spent a lot of time on it, 4 years. So we designed it ourselves. So a lot of it kind of sums up Bluberi. And the plus was because the other option was Prime, and like I was worse than Plus.
Yeah, don't take Bezos head on. Just go Plus is easy.
And now we can add stuff on. So it's going to be Beacon Plus Lighthouse.
Oh, interesting.
Plus, you know, use your imagination.
Strikes again. Bluberi magic.
Yeah, exactly.
So a couple things. So you at one point had said, hey, in the process, you know, if we see these red flags. So are there any big red flags that get to, and whether it's gate 3, I don't know, before, where you go, we're done, just shut her down. Like what would be one example of something that's just like a death blow for a game in that getting past the gate process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We haven't hit that yet. And hopefully we do our work on the front end.
That's what I was going to say. You seem so prepared. So I'm assuming like when you say, oh, the red flags, maybe they're not quite as dark red as maybe it sounds, but what would be like, what are the trip ups that some of these even veterans can make? I mean,
Okay. So I think red flags are some of the most important things we have, but like, so a big one is the computer decided. So let's say I have like a bonus where I'm trying to achieve a goal and it's hold and spin, so they can land anywhere. If over time it's clear that they're not landing by one of the targets, whether just, you know, because we can't afford to give it away, like, can you play this bonus enough? Like, that would be a red flag. Like, hey, clearly over time, you know, you said, what about the platinum players? They're going to catch on to this thing.
Sure.
And a mass market player may not see this, but like if I'm this player that just knows what I'm going for, and I just consistently see that, hey, you know, or you're spinning a wheel, it's always landing at 2x, you know, that would be like the computer decided. We would just course correct a little bit. You know, these red flags are not, you know, steadfast rules or just guidelines that hey, I see this, maybe let's address this, maybe we'll need to delay the game. You know, another one is over gating. So it's like, in order to get that jackpot, I need this, this, and this, and this to happen. It's like, okay, you know, maybe there's a problem here. Yeah. Do you remove the jackpot, you know, or do you just, you know, bypass one of the steps? So that's that. They're more course correctors. Sure. And in worst case, we're like, all right, we need to rework this. Let's do a CN and let's delay it, you know, a month or two, which is, you know, never a great decision.
Sometimes it's the right decision. It's never fun, right? Yeah.
But also, you spend a year on a game, and I think a lot of the times, as I mentioned, it's like we just got to get it out the door. And it's like I do think a lot of games that get released, it's like, oh man, if I would have just had another 2 months, I would have done this. And we're not necessarily doing that by default, but why not, you know, explore what that would be, right? And so we're obsessed with quality, I think, and that's helped us. It's like, hey, what would it take to get this game over the threshold? Like what, you know, the little things that we're working on at the end, you know, I think is shining through. And, you know, the goal is to keep doing it in different studios and roll with it.
Love it. And then lastly, one of the things I've noticed and I know the time flies on this thing, right? And so we can always have you back. But for Like, what would your advice be to new game designers? A lot of people I've noticed listen to this are new to the business, coming out of college, going, I got to learn something. They're crash coursing via MaxBet, which I'm sorry, guys, but that's what we got. And so, like, what would you tell them? Like, whether it's maybe new game designers, new to the business overall, like, what advice do you tend to give to the kind of the up and coming?
Yeah, curiosity, right? Like just play some games, watch YouTube videos that are not in the market, ask questions, be a sponge, be a student of the game. Like, I think that's something we pride ourselves on, is like we have crazy recall across like a group of us on, games from the past. And so, show, deference and understand maybe what came before, just be curious about what happens. Now, how to get like a job directly is, just
grind and
grind and, just show interest to it. It is funny how many people though, like that we interview and just haven't even done the 7 minutes of, binging instead of Googling,
You want to work for Bluberi, watch this. It gives you all the insight. You can bring it up in the interview.
Yeah, just bring up some stuff. Just say, hey, I saw this game, and just show, eagerness and curiosity, and then, try to find a mentor or what have you, and be a student in the industry. And because everybody wants, here's what's interesting, especially we're near Montreal, people want to work in video games. That's what they play. Really? That's what they do across the country, right?
Yeah,
Nobody's playing slots at 24.
For sure.
But slots are fun to work on because you get a variety of art and mechanics and stuff that usually has a cycle that's faster. You don't spending 3 years on something and then maybe worrying about your job, so right. It's like, I think, you can actually have a good career in slots. It's not super crowded because everybody wants to maybe, work on other things, and you can really make a name for yourself for sure. Things are growing. Like, we're open again, hiring another studio, Albuquerque, not everybody loves New Mexico, but I got some family there and would love to go to Albuquerque.
So Solana Beach or Albuquerque creatives.
Nothing else.
Get in touch with Mike Brennan.
Was there 7 of them out there listening to us, or 2?
Yeah. So, from there, I don't know. We'll see. So, that's awesome. Did I forget anything? I think you got some good stuff coming to G2E. A lot of good insights on game design. If you want to check either Mike out or Bluberi, check G2E, Bluberi.com, BluberiGaming.com. What's the website?
Yeah, I think it's just Bluberi.com.
Bluberi.com. I'm pretty sure I got that right. So, and then swing by the booth at G2E. They'll be open and ready to have you.
Yeah, and I would say it's not about me at all, right? Come see us.
You're here, so I'm picking
on
you.
No, but I mean, I appreciate that, but it's like, it is really, we're a great team, and it's amazing just the layers of talent across the organization, and we're looking for more folks, and we're looking to keep this thing going. It's on us to keep our culture and our process and everything rolling. There's a lot of customers that took a big position on us.
Oh, there you go.
It's crazy. We've had 7% of a casino opening, and you're like, okay, now it's
live up to it, buddy.
Exactly. So, but it's great to be back. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
And Miss Landon, but this is awesome. I listened all the time, and
Appreciate it.
It's definitely helpful to the industry, and I feel honored to be a part of this in your first episode. So
appreciate you having me. I appreciate you coming by. I should say I'm having you, but all good. So, cheers, man. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, man. Cheers.